Welcome to Reflection for the fifth Sunday of Easter. Our first reading is from Acts chapter 14, Psalms 145. Second reading is Revelation 21, and Gospel is from John 13, the Lord's final night. Acts, first reading, picks up where we left off last, or it's about a chapter later, but it's the same journey of Paul and Barnabas. We're told a lot of different places that they go. They made a great number of disciples. They returned to Lystra, to Iconium, and to Antioch. We heard some of those last week. But they're building up the church. They're going out, they're suffering. And so they strengthen the spirits of the disciples, the people that they are inviting into relationship with Christ that are saying yes, exhorted them to persevere in the faith. And I think it's beautiful that the church gives us these readings of the early church in our Easter season. So normally the rest of the year, our first reading is typically from the Old Testament. It's an Old Testament prefiguring of the gospel. During Easter, it's from the Acts of the Apostles. Or, as one of my professors in seminary, Father Peter Damien Akpononu, beautiful priest from Africa, used to carry a big knife around with him. It could sometimes be scary, but he said it was Acts of Apostles. So this isn't a story of the past. It's a story that we're a part of. And so we have to realize we are the continuation of the story. We are how this story is continuing to be lived out. But we're being told of their persecution, of their suffering, of their difficulty, and we're told that they exhorted them to persevere in the faith. Again, we talked about this last week, that to be a Christian means that we will suffer, and we want to embrace that. We want to hold on to it. In this Easter season, we remember that suffering is temporary. It will pass. We will enter into joy and happiness and celebration in time. They appointed elders for them in each church, and with prayer and fasting commended them to the Lord. That needs to be the attitude of all Christians. We have to be prayers. We have to be fasters. We have to keep Lent going all year long. Now, Lent is an intense season, but it needs to be the attitude of a Christian for the entire life. A part of why I love Benedictine spirituality is part of the rule says the monk is to live a perpetual Lent, or his life is to be perpetual Lent. That needs to be the attitude of all Christians. We have good things. We enjoy the celebration. We get into the goodness of God on Sundays and on our high feast days and our solemnities, especially on that octave of Easter a few weeks ago. Deacon Jason preached on that on Divine Mercy Sunday. We entered all that goodness. We also have that side by side with suffering. And this isn't it the case. How it is in everything in our life. We always want to look at all the other parts of our life. If you went to school, you got a degree. You had to study. You had to work hard. You had to have times of difficulty. Wasn't always that way. Sometimes it was fun. Think back to college. Same way in seminary, although a little bit different. There are very hard times, very fun times. That's the life of a Christian. As an athlete, very hard times. You've got times of two-a-days. You got times where you're going to give up. You keep persevering, you have success. Whatever the things are that we enjoy in this life, we have to have moments of sacrifice, paying for something, getting into something, spending the time for it to get to the reward. So it's a beautiful thing to pray with. What am I willing to sacrifice for the things of this world? What am I willing to sacrifice for the sake of the gospel? Offering it up to other people. And here, it's Paul and Barnabas offering the prayer and fasting for the people they're appointing. Pray and fast for the people you are called to teach, to preach. Starting with your family, your spouse, your children, maybe your friends you know have walked away from the faith or in that iffy arena, they're struggling, maybe they need some help. Prayer and fasting. Never bad to sacrifice for a friend or an enemy. That's how we can love them, as Jesus said. Then we're told of their continued trials, or of continued travels, which probably had some trials. When they arrived, they called the church together, reported what God had done with them, and how he'd opened the door to faith to the Gentiles. Again, that idea of fulfillment of promises of old. And our psalm, like always, is a beautiful, prayerful response to that first verse. Our second reading, Revelation, again, continuation of what we had last week, but we're jumping. We went from chapter 7, now we're in 21. So we're jumping quite a bit in the book. Same idea, though. Here we're looking to the future. A new heaven and a new earth. Former heaven, former earth passed away. See no more. A new Jerusalem coming down out of heaven. A new place of worship. And we're told at the end, the one who sat on the throne said, behold, I make all things new. That octave that we talked about, it's very important in John's theology that Jesus was resurrected on the 8th day. It's a new creation. He begins his gospel in the beginning, and how he has it several different times. On the 3rd day, on the 4th day, he puts everything on the day of the week. He has a theme throughout the entire gospel. And then Jesus is resurrected on the 8th day. It's the first day of the week, but it's also a continuation of the week before. So it's this idea of new creation. So just like before, God took chaos, he took nothingness, he took emptiness, and here we can insert the chaos of this world, the emptiness that sometimes we feel that comes upon us. All those difficulties, God is going to put in right order eventually. Once we get through this life, by God's grace, make it home to heaven, everything will be rightly ordered. He will do that with each one of us individually, and he will do it with all of creation. And so we have that promise given to us today. So again, a great consolation to get us through the difficulties. How is this city, Jerusalem, coming to us? It's prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. Heaven, eternal liturgy, it's the wedding feast of the Lamb. The language God uses to show his relationship to us, husband and wife. Jesus is the groom, the church, we all are the bride. Right? We come together in this beautiful marital embrace. Behold, God's dwelling place is with the human race. He will dwell with them, and they will be his people, and God himself will always be with them as their God. We have this beautiful language many times in the Old Testament, but because of my great love for the Exodus and praying with that beautiful story, we're at Mount Sinai. God has freed us from slavery to Egypt. He's freed us from them coming after us. God says, I will be your God, you're my people. And they say, yes, that's what we want. And they immediately fall into sin, and they continue to struggle. But God never gives up on them. That's a beautiful, beautiful promise. And so, again, God here is tapping into the struggles of old, the promises we made, but we failed on, but he stayed true, and how he will continue to be with us. And again, the promise of wiping away tears, no more death, no more mourning, beauty, beauty, beauty. And then John's gospel. When Judas had left them, Jesus said, now is the Son of Man glorified, and God is glorified in him. If God is glorified in him, God will also glorify him in himself, and God will glorify him at once. John's gospel is beautiful to pray with, beautiful to read, terrible to proclaim at Mass sometimes because of the circular way in which he speaks. That's why I'm glad I got deacons, amongst other reasons. Let them do it. But it's beautiful, beautiful. How God is going to be glorified. And again, what is Jesus entering into? He's entering into the cross. He's entering into suffering, but knowing that glory comes on the other side. Right, the last great sign in John's gospel before Jesus' resurrection is a calling back of Lazarus to life. Very different kind of resurrection, because Jesus is glorified, he will never die again. Lazarus will die again. But he's called back, and Jesus before that says, I'm glad for you I wasn't there so that you could see my glory, you could see my power, so that I could reveal a part of myself to you to get you ready for what is to come. But in the midst of that glory, it says, I will be with you only a little while longer. I give you a new commandment, love one another. Here we're starting to look a little bit soft, but still looking forward to Pentecost. We're starting to make that shift a little bit deeper to looking to the future, to Pentecost, the coming of the Holy Spirit. Jesus will leave us at the Ascension 40 days after the resurrection, or in our diocese about 43, because we transfer to the next Sunday. And then the Holy Spirit will come a week later. One of the things that I used to struggle with, and I guess I'm still working through all the fullness of the beauty of it, was why did Jesus have to leave and not just send the Holy Spirit? Why can't we have both? But part of the beauty is of Jesus leaving is not him, as Bishop Barron says, he's not going up, up, and away and leaving us behind. He's going to his command post where he can continue to guide the church, where he can continue to guide each one of us. If he was still walking amongst us, he had the limitations of the human body. He was in a place. But here, he's able to be in every place, every heart of the Christian, every person who's handed themselves over, every person who doesn't know him yet, but he's trying to call them to himself, every particle of a consecrated host, he is present. And so in a way, because he leaves us, he's able to be so much more close to us. It's a beautiful thing to pray with, again, especially as we get ready for celebration of the Ascension in not too long. It says, I've called you to love one another, and as I have loved you, so you also should love one another. This is how you know you're my disciples, if you have love for one another. But part of how we grow in this faith, part of how we invite people into relationship with God, is through the witness that we give. And so we need to pray with that. Are we going out and proclaiming the good news? Are we loving our brothers and sisters the way that we're supposed to? Are we handing ourselves over completely as Christ did? And each one of us has specific gifts, specific charisms, specific attributes that we have that others don't, that we need to use for the sake of the kingdom. But it's good to pray with the different parts of Christ's message, of Christ's life, and ask yourself, how am I living this out with Jesus on the cross? How am I living out Him what's on the cross? His going out to the sinner, how am I living that out? His reconciling with the broken, how am I living that out? Right? His going to the outcast, how am I living that out? His eating with sinners, his all the different things that he does. How am I living that out? Now, we can't all do everything. That's why the church as a body takes care of all of these things. But we do need to tap into all the different areas at different times and looking at the spiritual and corporal works of mercy, making sure we've got several of those very active in our life and we at least tap into all of them at different times. It's a very good way for us to make sure that we're fulfilling what Jesus has told us that we need to do. So the more we, again, hand ourselves over, the more that we are changed, the more we allow ourselves to be transformed, as we talked about last, the more we can enter into this reality. We can allow God to be our God, we to be His people, so that we can make it home to heaven, to enter into all the fullness of the beauty that He has given us. Have a good day. God bless.